Everyone had lunch. Everyone's back from lunch now, feeling good. Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm Vada, and I'm here. I want to talk to you a little bit about what TV and podcasting can learn from each other. And I wanted to start the talk with why am I here? Why am I talking about this? Who am I? Uh, I worked at Netflix for 9 years. I'm no longer there. But when I was there, I founded our original podcast division. And so what we started doing at Netflix with podcasts originally in 2018 was a Marcoms initiative. So we were taking the IP that Netflix already owned, was already working with, and thinking about how do we market it? How do we send it out in the world through podcasting? So that was everything from making companion shows like behind the scenes projects or after show projects to chat shows that were about brand initiatives or genres to talk about the diversity of the content on the slate. We also did IP extension. So we were doing things like nonfiction extension of documentaries through podcasting, as well as fictional extensions for things. So expanding worlds, prequels, and sequels in the podcast space. And before I was doing podcasts at Netflix, when we started doing that, I also worked on the social marketing team and led campaigns for titles. So I worked kind of from that green light / acquisition phase all the way through development, production, and launch, and that post-launch window. So kind of a soup to nuts version of television marketing. And then the other kind of part of my background is I like to say I'm a professional fan. So I have a degree in fandom. It's something you can get. And I studied fan communication and fans online. And then I led a lot of early stage social media for digital entertainment companies. And then I also worked as a reporter in the creator community space. So a lot of mid-stage YouTube, so like 2014, 2015 YouTube, and Vine and Musically before it was TikTok. So sort of the background of where I come at this from. So it's been a buzzy thing in the last, I'd say, year and a half of TV getting really interested in podcasting and video podcasting specifically. And I wanted to lay the groundwork of why that is before we kind of go into some lessons I think they can learn from each other. One of the major reasons that streamers particularly are interested in the podcast space is it's filling a gap in programming that they haven't been able to fill themselves. So it's the idea of a lean back type of programming. Television is really good. Streaming is really good at a Friday night movie to watch with your family. It's really good at an 8-episode series that you're going to really pay attention to. You're going to put your phone down during. And they've tried to fill in the gaps previously with unscripted content and some versions of talk shows. And it's been a mixed bag. But what they're missing often is truly like a lean back, co-watch while you're doing something else type of content. So something that is in segments that you can tune in and out of while you're doing other things. And podcasts and video podcasts have been really great at that and succeeding at that on other platforms like Spotify, like YouTube. The other kind of aspect tied to that is the ads revenue situation, where streamers that are Netflix in particular, but lots of them are including ads into their service and wanting to sell against a slate, against a lot of things. So if you don't have the components of a lean back, you don't have a talk show to sell against, you're missing an area that you could be monetizing. There's a lot of talk about podcasts being cheap or cheaper than television, and that's true. It is cheaper to produce podcasts, even in video, than the standard is for podcast or for television production and film production. And because of that, though, it allows streamers to think about not having to create one talk show or one marquee item that has to speak to everybody and has to be the tune in every night or one night a week. They can split that cost up across a lot of different places and say, this can be for different segments and it all can level up to one big thing. And that also makes each individual piece of content have a less of a barrier to success. So the success metric is lowered for each piece of content. So you're able to go, okay, if I have 7 podcasts that equal one talk show, I might be able to really continue building all of these without feeling like it didn't do well enough out the gate. So I kind of just divided this into a little bit of a lesson plan. 3 things that I think that television and podcasts can learn from each other. The first one is, I think directness is a superpower of podcasting. Podcasts are directly connected with their fan communities, with their communities in general. They're able to build that really strong connection with an audience. There's a back and forth. They can develop themselves over time. Television tends to be pushing towards a fandom as opposed to in a dialogue with a fandom. And we've seen that as podcasts are going on to streamers, there's a pushback from the audience now. And we've been able to see this in Reddit comments and, Instagram, things like that, where they're asking for the things that they want. And I think that it's really important that as television gets in the sandbox, that they play by some of the rules of what podcast fans really want. So commenting, community, time codes, some things that seem very basic in the podcast space, but they weren't really considered in a television space. And I think it's important that as they grow together, that television doesn't force podcasting to conform to its norms only. And I think on the flip side of that, when you think about television, there's a push towards premium. And that we've seen with video podcasting that audiences are open to varying levels of video. So, they're willing to go to something super premium, but they're also open to a Riverside, video chat. That's if they're interested in the content, they're interested in the creator, they're interested in the topic, there's going to be flexibility there. I think that we know that from the podcasting audience side, but when you're putting podcasts into a TV streaming environment, you're getting new people in who've never experienced it, who are clicking in through their discovery and clicking on what they don't know is a podcast. And there might be more judgment to how that visually looks and how it appears. And I think there's some meeting in the middle that will need to come to that, where either some better education from the streamers to tell people what they're clicking into, and also some elevation of what goes on streaming platforms so that the lay person, the TV viewer that doesn't know what a podcast is and doesn't know that they're clicking on one, doesn't feel like they're unimpressed with what they're clicking on. And then the third thing that I think is really key and interesting to me is the idea of how does television help launch stars in podcasting in a really, really big and broad way. At Netflix, we talked about this thing called the Netflix effect. And it's when a talent that was nobody knew on a show would show up and the show would blow up and they would go from zero to billions, right? And I think that it's a very interesting impact of streaming platforms to be able to really do marketing at a big scale. And I don't think we've seen in the podcast space yet marketing at the level that television and streaming has been able to do. And I think if you're going to put podcasts in the same bucket as you're looking at a Stranger Things in and a Bridgerton in, that there's a really great opportunity to go, if this is on the same row as something like that on your streamer, we could be putting it the same kind of attention and elevation behind it that you're putting behind a TV show or a film. And I think there's the same opportunity to go from that relative zero to household name. And I think that we're seeing this, and I clipped this, I think it's Hollywood Reporter piece about the new late night. You see people starting to get to that way, but I think the supercharge of television could be the chance to take these people that are doing really great independent work or really great work in different networks and take it to the next level. So that's the thing I'm most excited about as I think about what could come together between television and podcasting. And I only have a minute left, so I'm going to take questions off to the side if anyone wants to talk after, but thank you so much.